Sophie, thank you. Good evening and welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. As you've seen, Yorkshire MP Rachel Reeves delivers her budget as the country's first female Chancellor.
The only way to drive economic growth is to invest, invest, invest.
What will it all mean for you? We have been getting reaction from right around the region.
I know you've got to keep investment, you've got to keep things going that way, but I think that the wealthy could shoulder more than the people who are really struggling.
We'll put questions to a political expert. Also tonight, remembering him, the name of a First World War soldier is added to a South Yorkshire War memorial after a campaign by his family.
And we'll be having a total scream here in Acomb, where the neighbourhood chief witch has been conjuring up some thrills and chills ready for Halloween for the last 40 years.
And after 2 sunny days this week, it's been a bit disappointing today with all the cloud, but will it break up tomorrow? Join me for that detailed forecast.
Hello and thank you for your company this Wednesday evening. First tonight to the long-awaited budget. Yorkshire MP and the country's first female Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, unveiled her plans for the government's finances over the coming years. Now, among the measures, she announced the state pension to rise by 4.1% in April. The national living wage for employees aged 21 and over will rise from £11.44 an hour to £12.21. 5p cut to fuel duty on petrol and diesel due to end in April 2025 will be kept for another year. Tax on non-draft alcoholic drinks to increase by the higher retail price index measure of inflation, but tax on draft ale will be cut by 1.7%. The Chancellor also reaffirmed a commitment to upgrading the Trans-Pennine rail line between York and Manchester, running via Leeds and Huddersfield, mass transit for Leeds and Bradford, and the renewal of Sheffield Supertram. Well, our political editor James Vincent's in Westminster for us this evening. James, some passing reference in the budget to those transport schemes, which you and I have heard about many, many times before. Other than that, though, not much else for the region from a Yorkshire Chancellor.
No, we did get those mentions, but we knew all about them, like you say before, Phil. The main thing for people to digest from Rachel Reeves' budget today is the tax, the amount of tax that's being raised by Rachel Reeves, £40 billion. Labour says it's keeping to its manifesto commitment not to tax working people. They're putting national insurance up for employers, not employees. The opposition say they are breaking their manifesto promise. And who you think is right will really depend on who you are, what your circumstances are, and whether you consider yourself a working person. Of course, it was a historic budget today, the first female Chancellor after 800 years of blokes lining up to give their views on what the country should be doing on the economy. A woman stood behind the dispatch box for the first time and set out the government's economic policy. And Rachel Reeves faced a lot of scrutiny about that today. She's got to sell this to the country. She's also got to sell it to her constituents back in Pudsey. She'll be up there no doubt on Friday talking to people there about the budget this week. But we were there today to find out what Rachel Reeves' constituents thought about what she had to say today.
I think that she is targeting older people, and I think it's really, we've all worked hard in our lives, saved, and now she's targeting us.
I know you've got to keep investment, you've got to keep things going that way, but I think that the wealthy could shoulder more than the people who are really struggling.
I think the NHS definitely wants more money, yes. But where they get it from, I don't know, because I'm not the Chancellor.
If there's no tax rises and no fuel prices are going up, definitely. I mean, I work in Brighouse, so I absolutely have to drive from Pudsey every day.
Of course I don't want my taxes to go up and what I'm getting every month to change. But on the other side of that, I don't think it's that simple. I think we've got an NHS that's floundering, and I work in the education system, so I know firsthand that it is on its knees. So I'd like to know where there might be money coming from to improve those things.
A lot of people would say increase taxes for the most wealthy. I think all I'd say is we don't want to put anyone at more of a disadvantage. We need to be looking after the most vulnerable people in our society, and that's where we should be putting our focus.
I don't think there's enough help there. I think if the tax isn't going up, if it's going to stay the same, then I suppose that is a step in the right direction.
Of course, it's been a really busy day for everybody watching the budget, everybody part of the budget, Rachel Reeves, of course, but those new MPs that were elected in the election just a couple of months ago were in the chamber for the first time to hear their first budget. Of course, all of our new MPs are Labour MPs in our part of the world. So I caught up with a couple of them earlier. Obviously, they're very supportive of the government, but I tried to challenge them on what they thought Rachel Reeves' budget was all about and whether they could sell it to people back home.
We've waited 15 years nearly now to have a Labour budget again, so to be in that chamber, like you say, with the first female Chancellor was a really special moment in our history, both for the country and for the Labour Party. Great stuff. What did you think of what Rachel Reeves had to say today? There were tax raises for people. Are working people in Donny going to think this is a good budget or not, do you think? Absolutely, it's a good budget for Doncaster. We've made it very clear that we are going to be a government of investment and growth and not decline, and that's what Rachel has spelled out today.
Good straight talking folk in Yorkshire know the really difficult inheritance that we got, but on businesses we've had to raise national insurance for employers, but if you look at your own pay slip from April and beyond, your national insurance, your income tax, it's staying the same, and in fact in the future from 2028 onwards we're going to start actually raising income tax thresholds, so you're going to be better off at that point. And for businesses as well, we're increasing the employment allowance so that small businesses can actually hire people without paying national insurance in the first place on more occasions. So on the end, this was the right balance for businesses.
After the current Yorkshire Chancellor sat down, the last Yorkshire Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, got up as his role as the leader of the opposition at the moment until Saturday. There'll be a new leader of the Conservatives by then. He got to put the opposition's point of view on the budget. He said he thought that Labour had broken its manifesto promises, and the opposition parties in Westminster aren't convinced about Rachel Reeves' plan. Here's the Lib Dems and the Conservatives.
I think the country wanted to be optimistic for this budget, but what's really key is what's not in the budget. There's not commitments to make sure that RAC in hospitals, it says it will be repaired, it says further detail will be laid before from the DHSE, and that's what's really noticeable. Is it's lots of further info's coming, further analysis down the line, and actually what people wanted is they wanted to see some of those problems starting to get fixed right now, and what we're seeing is massive tax increases that are going to impact on small and medium enterprises and businesses, and in places like Harrogate where we've got lots of independent businesses, that's really going to worry them.
Well, it's frustrating, clearly, being in the opposition benches, but we've got to do the job to the best of our ability. I'm Shadow Business Secretary, so my focus is always listening what's in the interest of businesses. And I was really disappointed. I mean, people expect me to say that, but it's not just me that's saying that. Independent economic commentators are saying this is bad for business, which should be bad for growth and bad for workers.
So that's what the opposition MPs from our part of the world have been saying. Let's find out what businesses have been thinking now. Of course, those tax rises, Labour say, aren't coming from employees. They say that working people won't see any more taxes coming from their pay packets. In fact, the minimum wage is rising. They say that they're helping working people, but businesses, people who run businesses, may find it a little bit tougher because their costs are going to go up. The national insurance contributions for businesses will go up, although when they start paying that, it has gone down as well. And what they'll find is the assistance for them has helped as well. So Labour's saying that they're trying to protect smaller businesses so they can employ more people on minimum wage. But do people really think that's the right way to go? Spencer Stokes has been out in Halifax trying to find out what businesses think of what the Chancellor's been saying today.
After a summer of anticipation, Budget Day arrives. Early morning in Halifax and businesses waiting to hear what the country's first female Chancellor of the Exchequer has to say. So we caught up with two female business owners at a haulage firm in the town and West Yorkshire's last family-run department store. It employs 100 people.
Feeling pretty sick right now. Unfortunately, it's worse than I expected. I did expect a tough budget. It's got to be a tough budget, but it's hitting small businesses in multiple ways.
As predicted, the rates employers pay in national insurance will rise, and they'll have to pay it for workers earning anything above £5,000 a year.
This will raise £25 billion per year by the end of the forecast period. I know that this is a difficult choice. I do not take this decision lightly. We are asking businesses to contribute more.
That element came as a surprise. So how does a company carry the new costs?
What's the worst case scenario? Do you have to lay people off?
I've got a lot of working out to do as to how this is going to affect us going forward. It's extremely worrying. To protect working people need jobs. I'm trying to provide jobs for people, and unfortunately this is going to make it harder for me to do so.
From selling goods to shifting them, there's relief at FreightLink Europe that fuel duty didn't go up. That was the expectation.
OK, it's not the horror story that it could have been, but it doesn't do anything for business growth, especially in the haulage sector.
The government will say that money's for schools, it's for hospitals, it's for the roads, and they're using it, in their words, to fix the foundations.
Yeah, let's remember that delivery to all these schools, businesses, is on the back of a truck, because 98% of everything comes on the back of a truck. And these are small family businesses which are the backbone of our economy.
Historically, this is a big revenue-raising budget. Borrowing and taxes are going up. The government say the money's desperately needed to improve frayed public services. Businesses fear it could choke off economic growth. Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North, Halifax.
It's fascinating to hear what businesses in Yorkshire are making of this today. There's a lot to digest. Labour saying on that business front that the employee assistance is going to be improved for businesses. So they think that they can help smaller businesses especially reduce their national insurance liability. But as we've been saying all week, your relationship with the budget that Rachel Reeves announced behind me today as the chimes go off on Big Ben, is that it will depend on your individual circumstances. It will depend on who you are, what you earn, whether you've got a pension, whether you've got some benefits, if you're an employer. All those things will depend completely on your personal relationship with the state and your personal relationship with the budget. And I would advise anybody to go on the BBC website. There's some key points at a glance, how it will affect you. And if you want more of this, you can hear Politics North on Sunday when we'll be going over the budget as well. A lot to get through and a lot to digest, and I think as we've seen over the few weeks ahead of the budget, we've heard a lot of talk about the budget. We're not going to hear it end today. There'll be lots to talk about in the days to come as well, Phil.
OK, James live in Westminster, thank you for that analysis. Well, let's get some more reaction now to some of the issues highlighted by James there. Dr Alexandra Meakin is a lecturer in politics at the University of Leeds. Alex, good to see you. Your analysis of the budget briefly.
Well, we knew this was going to be a big moment in the early days of this new government, but actually it's been much bigger than we could have anticipated. Huge public spending paid for by huge rise in taxes, and a huge gamble as to whether the markets and businesses here in Yorkshire will keep confidence in the Chancellor.
Yeah, you rightly say it's a risky strategy, this, isn't it? The Chancellor announced basic and new state pensions. A lot of people cheer that, going up by 4.1% under the triple lock. Do you think she's done enough to placate those angry pensioners who lost their winter fuel payments?
It's doubtful, and I think she'll be hearing from Labour MPs, the ones sitting behind her on the green benches, who'll be hearing every day from their constituents who may be unhappy that they weren't included in the definition of working people.
The national insurance contributions by employers was much trailed. The hike, which has been quite an extraordinary, and the lowering of the threshold to £5,000. What do you think businesses will make of that?
I think some businesses aren't going to be happy. They're already calling it a tax on jobs. But Labour are in a difficult position. You know, they tied themselves up a little in knots by pledging not to increase taxes on working people, no increases in income tax or national insurance for employees. They needed to find the money for public services somewhere. They've settled on employer national insurance contributions, but will this have an effect on jobs, hours that people are offered?
a freezing or the tax threshold, which have been frozen for so long, will change, they're saying, in 2028. That's 4 years away still, so still time to change that, I suppose, even despite the pledge they won't.
Yes, it's been seen as a bit of a rabbit out of the hat. People are expecting that tax threshold freeze to stay to the end of the decade. 2028 is the date given, but that still means 4 years of what's called a stealth tax, the fiscal drag, where the threshold doesn't increase with inflation.
Very briefly, 10 seconds, where does this budget stand, given it's the first budget by a female Chancellor?
I think it's a really important symbolic moment. Little girls all over Yorkshire, including my daughters, will be able to see this and know they could reach that height one day.
OK, Dr Meakin, thanks for that
Thank
context.
you very much.
Much appreciated. You're watching Wednesday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme, the historic cast iron bridge getting a £250,000 makeover at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. OK, let's get some news in brief now. A shop worker has been stabbed while trying to stop a thief who stole a charity box in Sheffield. The incident happened in the Firth Park area of the city this morning. Police said an employee in his 20s was stabbed, with another worker then bitten on the hand. A 40-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of assault and robbery. A teenage girl has been sentenced after taking part in a riot outside a hotel that housed asylum seekers in Rotherham earlier this year. The 16-year-old, who can't be named due to her age, said she attended the riot to try and impress her crush. The girl admitted to violent disorder, and today at Sheffield Youth Court she was given a 12-month intensive referral order and told to pay £111 in costs. A quick look at last night's football now. Sheffield Wednesday's exit from the League Cup at Brentford also means the end of our interest in the competition for another season. But the Owls can hold their heads high after pushing the Premier League team all the way to a penalty shootout. JD Gasarma's equaliser for Wednesday was worth the trip alone for their travelling supporters. Eventually, it was Liam Palmer who failed from the penalty spot to send Brentford through to the quarter-finals. Now, work to restore a 200-year-old cast iron bridge has begun at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park near Wakefield. The Grade 2 listed structure is one of only a handful of its design left in the region. Just over 5 metres in length, the diminutive bridge spans a narrow section of the River Dearn on the Bretton estate, forming a vital link for visitors, horse riders and estate staff, plus emergency services. I've been to take a look. For almost 2 centuries, the cast iron arches of Cut Bridge have provided passage for people, livestock and equipment over the River Dearn. The balustrade railings and decorative fleur-de-lis heads symbolic of its pre-Victorian design. So Valerio, just explain to me what condition the bridge is in.
It's not great at the moment.
Lead in the old paint means steaming the ironwork, then stripping it by hand, a painstaking and meticulous process.
Being in the middle of the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, we need to be really careful about water contamination and environment.
The project is costing more than £250,000, funded by the government's Museum Estate Fund and the Historic Houses Foundation.
For us to have the opportunity to preserve this for future generations is absolutely key, because there is so few of it, and to preserve the material and the look of the bridge, but also to maintain the access through an historic park and garden like we're managing at Yorkshire Sculpture Park.
Well, while removing the bridge decking, the team uncovered a pair of shoes concealed within the structure. Now, in the 18th and 19th centuries, people used to hide shoes in structures, a way of warding off evil spirits. And if you look at the design of these shoes, you can see stud work here on the sole. It's a leather shoe, so arguably these could have been here and concealed for hundreds of years. Stonemasons, joiners and ironmongers are among the craft skills employed in preserving the Grade 2 listed structure.
This is quite rare in itself, in that it's basically all cast iron, so it's cast iron bridge ribs forming the arches and cast iron railings. So it's all ironwork, which is a little bit unusual in itself.
Even the oak sleepers used for bridge decking will now be repurposed for pathways and borders around the park. Ancient material providing a modern solution to help sustain the estate for generations to come. A look. Now, a soldier who died after being wounded in the First World War has finally had his name added to a South Yorkshire War Memorial. Private Walter Blackwell came home to the village of Wales, but because he died some years later, wasn't formally recognised. His niece led the campaign to remember him. Tom Ingle went to the service this morning.
The Great War's guns fell silent more than a century ago. But today, the memories still ring out loudly, and people gather to listen. Private Walter Blackwell took the King's Shilling in Wales and returned home a wounded, broken man. His niece, in her 90s, arranged a campaign to have his name added to the village memorial.
Time and time again, I lived here all these years, and I've come up here and walked past it and thought, yes, he really ought to be there, and he wasn't. But the History Society in the village helped me get it together, and his leg was wounded at Ypres on the battlefields, and he lived with that, but they couldn't do anything for it. It was so bad. In the end, they took it off at the hip, and he died as a result of the operation.
Extracts from Walter's diary were read at today's service, describing the carnage he witnessed at Ypres.
The Germans dropped a shell right on top of the shaft and it fell in. We just managed to get out, and the men were lying dead in all directions.
Particularly for Walter's family, for Betty and her daughter Jill. Betty is Walter's niece. It was so important for his name to be honoured in this community.
No more the unknown soldier. Walter's sacrifice finally speaks to today's generation. Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Wales.
Thanks, Tom. Now, here's the question of the day. Have you picked your pumpkins and horrified your house? It is, of course, Halloween Eve, and these days people seem to be getting into the spooky spirits of trick-or-treating than even bonfire night. One terrifying town in North Yorkshire has a haunted house that's being decorated for every single Halloween now for 40 years. Well, Hannah Gray is live for us with 72-year-old Linda, who's making sure her neighbours have a terrorific time. Hannah, I can almost hear the cackling from here.
Yes, welcome to Linda's ghoulish garden. It's absolutely extraordinary. We're here in Acombe in North Yorkshire, and
The
there
best
are
bit was last
snake
night when Tom
trees, there are ghoulish grinning pumpkins, and there's loads of amazing spooky dens that you can come and explore filled with trick or treats. Now, this is Linda. You must meet her. Linda, how long has it taken to get all of this ready?
2 months actually, with quite a lot of help. It's been great preparing for this.
And how long per day?
At least 4 hours a day, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Where do you store all of these decorations? There must be thousands of them.
Happy to say I've got 3 sheds which are jam full.
Well, the local community have told me that they've been watching you day by day, putting more out and more out and more out. It is extraordinary. Why do you do it?
I love it, and the children, it's just magic for them when they come here. Absolutely love it to bits. Every year they come, year after year, and I see them grow as well, from babies to little teenagers, and having great fun.
And now some of them are bringing their own children, aren't they? Now, Linda has told me that she's expecting about 400 children tomorrow. There might be even more after she's been on Look North. This is Tracy. Tracy, you've been helping set it all up, haven't you? What sort of a reaction does it get?
Oh, it's amazing. The kids' faces just light up. They love all the different challenges and experiencing things that they wouldn't always be able to experience. So it's fantastic. The kids all love it.
Oh, brilliant. Right, well, let's take a look at some of the amazing things that there is here. It's not just decorations, there's some challenges too, and we've got 2 volunteers here. Now, you're going to try a potion, aren't you? We're going to see, is it nasty or is it nice? Off you go.
Okay, let me try it.
Have a taste.
Have a taste.
What do you think? Do you dare? What do you think? Yucky or yummy?
Goodbye.
Yummy. Oh, what a relief. No poison there. And what do you guys love about Halloween?
Getting free sweets and dressing up.
And what about you?
I like when all the trick-or-treaters have left and I get to eat all those sweets they've left.
And there's lots of sweets here. Right then, just to end, let's plunge your hands inside this cauldron in the potion and see what we can find. In you go. Have a reach. What you're going to get? Lovely. All right then, whatever you're up to tomorrow, have an absolutely spooktacular Halloween.
Hannah, live in York, thank you very
did you
much
get?
for that. Do you know, we've had a good old selection of witches on the programme tonight, haven't we? And this week, indeed.
Yeah, indeed, and good weather for Halloween
And
tomorrow
Halloween,
night.
it's not even here yet.
I know, it's a bit like Christmas. We'll be doing it in August next year,
I
won't
wonder
we?
what we'll do tomorrow, Paul.
Well, everybody will be tuning in to find out. In the meantime, I found a little bit of sunshine because obviously that cloud has been pretty extensive today, but Scarborough did brighten up for a little time with some sunshine. And the next picture is a cloudy one, but it's a beautiful one. That's very autumnal, isn't it? In Thirsk from Wendy Windblows. If you've got any pictures you want to send to me, the addresses are on your screen right now. So tomorrow is a very similar sort of day, although the westerly breeze should pick up, so away from the Pennines, we've got a better chance of seeing some cloud breaks and some sunny spells. So variable cloud, sunny spells, high pressure in charge. This week, weather front tries to get down on Friday, but it sort of shears off into the near continent and high pressure rebuilds. And as I said last night, it's probably going to be with us, not just for the rest of October, that means just tomorrow, but the first half of November could be dominated by that high pressure as well. There's the satellite picture. The nearest sunshine really has been up over the northeast of England. We've missed out after what was a couple of beautiful days on Monday and on Tuesday. So overnight variable, often large amounts of cloud. Where we do get some cloud breaks in that sheet, we'll see some mist and patchy fog, and we'll see lowest temperatures coming in at around about 8 or 9 degrees. Tomorrow's high water times in Scarborough at 8 minutes past 3, Bridlington at 3:36. So it is another quiet day right across Yorkshire and the North Midlands. It's largely dry. The odd spot of drizzle can't be ruled out over the top of the Pennines, but for most of us it's dry. And as that breeze picks up, you can see some breaks coming through to the east of the Pennines, Vale of York into North East Yorkshire, perhaps eastern side of South Yorkshire too, and that will lift temperatures up to 15 degrees Celsius. Spot the difference Friday and the weekend, and really for much of next week it's dry, variable amounts of cloud, and there'll be some sunshine at times. And that is your accurate forecast tonight, Phil.
When did wind blows? Did you make that up?
No, that is is as it was sent in. The mind boggles.
I've heard it all now. All life is here on Look North. Thank you. Kathy Minton's back at 10:30. Paul and myself. Good night.